Okay, let's see here. Alright, we are recording. Hope you guys are having a great Lord's Day thus far, you guys. We're looking at Psalm 90 today. And the head here is God's eternity and man's transitoriness. And you'll see why in a minute. It says, a prayer of Moses, the man of God. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you gave birth to the earth and the world. Even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn a man back into dust and say, return, O children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or as a watch in the night. You have swept them away like a flood. They fall asleep. In the morning, they are like grass which sprouts anew. In the morning it flourishes and sprouts anew. Toward evening it fades and withers away. For we have been consumed by your anger, and by your wrath we have been destroyed. You have placed our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. For all our days have declined in your fury. We have finished our years like a sigh. As for the days of our life, they contain 70 years, or, if due to strength, 80 years. Yet their pride is but labor and sorrow. For soon it will be gone, and we will fly away. With who understands the power of your anger and your fury, according to the fear that is in you, that is due you, sorry. So teach us to number our days, that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. Do return, O Lord. How long will it be? And be sorry for your servants. Oh, satisfy us in the morning with your loving kindness, that we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. Make us glad according to the days that you have afflicted us, and the years we have seen evil. Let your work appear to your servants, and your majesty to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and confirm for us in the work of our hands. You know, this is a psalm we saw starting out about that it was a prayer of Moses and a song of Moses. And, you know, he's talking about the sorrow and the anguish that was felt as they were in the wilderness so long, and they were stubborn, and they kept angering God and testing God. That you remember the story that the generation that was in the wilderness did not make it to the promised land, but rather it was the next generation. And then there was Caleb and Joshua. But, you know, there's some interesting things in this, And it's true because when we get to places like James, uh, I believe it's James 4, that it talks about, life is but like a vapor. We're here 1 minute and gone the next. Um, and we see in this that 70 to 80 years is man's longevity, and that is very accurate. The Psalms were written. This was probably a very old one, and so I mean, you got to figure 1,000, 2,000 years before Christ. Um, I mean, these are things that are still now. I mean, they're talking about now. Our average lifespan for humans averages about 70 years for men, 70 to 75, and just over that for women. And if you are in good health, you do get to live a lot longer. I guess there's been people that made it to 120. Um, but that's what he's talking about there. And it says that he is everlasting and we are not. That's what we get from this. Um, I used to think when I first became a Christian about that in verse 3 about 1,000 years as a day and a day is as 1,000 years, which you also see over in Second Peter chapter 3. That's not exactly what he's saying. What he's saying there is that there's no time, no concept of time. There is no, like, as humans, we understand. This is why a lot of people that I've talked to, whether in counseling or just talking, have freaked out about like the concept of eternity. Is just because it's forever. It's not something that we can actually think about. Because we think in terms of 24-hour days and we plan our lives that way. But it talks about that it's here and then it's gone. Um, God was angry at the people in the wilderness. Um, and he does place our iniquities before us, just like he did with them. All our days have declined in the fury. That was, that whole wilderness thing. Um, I like that this one verse here. Teach us to number our days. Uh, verse 12 here in Psalm 90, that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days. Understand that, I'm 51 years old. I was born with two disabilities that really should have killed me by now. I always tell my wife, like about the refrigerator, when you go in and you look and you see what the expiration date to see if it's something that should be getting ready to get out and put it out to the trash. I said, I've had one of those expiration dates that just keeps getting erased by the doctors. God knows when my years are up and my numbers are up. I would refer you, I don't know how much time we're going to have to get to it today, but I would refer you over to Psalm 139, where it talks about that God knows everything about us. He knows the day we're going to be born, when he knits us together in our mother's womb. He knows the day, what we're going to do with our life is already pre-planned by God. He knows us. And then he knows the date of our death. He knows us when we go to sleep. There's nowhere we can get away from God. People in hell are not away from God. He knows, he sees them there too. There is nowhere to escape God. You can go in the deepest pit in the earth, at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, or the highest, wherever the space shuttle can go. Can't get away from God. You may think you're doing things. When I start thinking on something, or the flesh starts wanting to encourage me to do something, I think back to Psalm 19. And it talks about, the presumptuous sins. Even when we are thinking about something, um, I don't know, whatever your sin is of choice, everybody has their own weak area. The go-to seems to be these days, especially the whole thing with pornography. And it's like, you might think, well, let's see, I'm going to be home after church, so I'll go over here, and then nobody will be over there, and I can just sneak into this little spot and go look. God is there. God is everywhere. He's watching. We needn't be worried about what men will do to us if they find out. We need to be worried about what God will do to us and what God thinks of what we're going to do. And, Romans 2:6 talks about how, even our thought life, he sees. Um, but it goes on, and it tells us to count our days. Ecclesiastes I've preached on, and I've preached on in this playlist. Definitely go check it out. When I deal with people, and I've gone to do like nursing home preaching and counseling, and I use Ecclesiastes 12 a lot because it talks about the things about how you slow down and the vision goes and the hearing goes. You fall down easier. Your friends, they pass on, and so fewer and fewer family members and friends are around you, and you have fear of going downstairs because you fall. The shakes, um, teeth fall out. It talks about all kinds of things. You'll definitely want to check that out. Um, and it says, "Let your work appear to your servants, and your majesty to their children." We see these things, and Romans 1 is clear about that we've had all of creation to know that God is who He says He is. And you see how we're doing here. Um, so and this message isn't to be morbid. It's more to encourage you guys. As I was reading and studying and thinking, we need to be aware. And I lost my brother unexpectedly. He was my best friend in 2020. He lived with me. He was mentally slow. Um, where I was born with physical disabilities, he was born with mental. And so he lived with me and I took care of him, but he helped me out a lot too. We worked really good together growing up as kids and everything. We were like best friends. Um, we were rotten teenagers together, but and we all got sick around Thanksgiving in 2000. And for whatever reason, he got sicker and sicker. And by the end of the week, he was in the hospital and died the next day. And we just don't know why. And that always kind of stuck with me. But he was 28 years old. I was 29. And it really got me thinking, we're not guaranteed old age. But the older we do get, a lot more people you'll see that start going to church are older a lot of times. And it's because you start thinking about your mortality. And that's what God is trying to say here about count our days. Teach us to count our number our days. We need to start doing that and preparing for the fact that, someday we're not going to be here. It shouldn't consume us or anything like that. But we should be thinking about that because, the things that we do here are fleeting. And we can get frustrated with situations. And I grew up poor and never really got any, richer after that. But to find wealth. I mean, I know the Lord, and I've been given abilities like being able to play music and write music and record, and I've had some good things happen in my life. Um, you can go check out in my All Things Music video one where I give a little bit about my background, but I've been blessed in a lot of ways in my life. But at the same time, I'm getting older, and when a doctor says that with what's going on with me, I shouldn't be here more than 5 more years, and they've been telling me that since I was 15, you really start to number your days. And so that's something that I would encourage you guys to do. This is a good psalm to remind us that God goes on forever and He is aware of everything about us. And, our days will come to an end and we will meet Him. And it says that, it is appointed to man once to die and then comes judgment. And we really need to be aware of that because we do have to give an account, and eternity is forever. This is just temporary. When I see people fighting over like politics or, movements that are going on in society or somebody that just really gets under our skin and irritates us, these things are all fleeting. There's been times where, we were working through something and all of a sudden a family member or a friend or whatever it is will pass away. And it's like, that's really hard because you don't ever get that, it doesn't get settled to be on this side of heaven. But, these are all things that are like fleeting. And a lot of the times when people come in for counseling, I have to help them understand that too. That, what's going on in our lives, if it's bad, it's temporary. If it's good, it could be very temporary. Being a musician, before I was a Christian, especially, and having met some famous big names, and they're right on top one day, and then it's gone. People want to be famous and want all this money and stuff. As quick as things come, they go, and you don't know what's going to happen. And so I've done messages on being satisfied and content, and that's also in this playlist. You can go check that one out. But we have to remember that no matter what we're going through and what's going on, it's temporary. It might knock us down for a minute. We might get discouraged, but I've used Psalm 73 talking to people where it's talking about looking back on your days, and you say you had a pretty good life. Yeah, things you could have done different, things you could have done better. I don't think I've used my skills as good as I could have. I thought I did, but you know, the Lord's still giving me days, and if I never make it back into my pulpit, um, I hope to get back into the pulpit and preaching full time. But I noticed that people are telling me, well, there's this whole like this venue here, the online pulpit that people are doing now, so I can still bring you guys my messages. But take stock, know that tomorrow may not come, and that might help some people live better. If you're one to go out and like stir people up or cause problems and fight and whatever, or lie or gossip or whatever it is that you do, you may not be here tomorrow. Would that be the last thing you want to have done? And I think about that a lot. I try to enjoy the good times while they're going on, and I think back on the good times. I know people, the people close to me, that will reflect on all the bad things that the people have done to them, and the bad things that have happened in their life. And like I said, it's hard for me to shake my brother's death, but at the same time, like when I think back, I think about the fun things that me and him did, and I think back on the good times in my life and not the bad. There was abuse, there was all kinds of things that I could easily get absorbed in, and really get down and out. But yeah, so if you take nothing else from this, it's that tops 70 to 80 years we're given, and it goes quick. And the older you get, the faster you'll see how the days go by. We were just doing our Christmas shopping, and I was thinking, I asked my wife, I'm like, didn't we just do this? It seems like we just did this. When you're a kid, it seems like eternity from Christmas to Christmas. Now it's like you wrapped the last present, you paid the last bill, and here it's back around again. So time goes quicker as you get older, and then you're done. But live each day, for Christ. It says in 1 Corinthians, um, was it 1 Corinthians? It might have been 2 Corinthians. I think it was chapter 4, where it says, do all things as unto the Lord. And we should do that. In Philippians, and do all things, do everything that you do to the glory of God. Um, I know that there are Christians who don't mind having a little bit of beer, and all, you don't get drunk, but I couldn't do it. But if you do it all to the glory of God, and you're not doing wicked things like getting drunk, I guess. But everything we do, we should do in honor of God and a thankful heart. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.